broad church, that actually it doesn't represent people in the way that they feel it should?
Well, I don't agree with them overall, because I think that actually the Conservative Parliamentary Party, the membership is extremely broad. Councillors and activists up and down the country representing all sorts of different backgrounds. But unfortunately what has happened because of Brexit, which is now dominating our lives here in Westminster, I think all of the coverage of politics and everything else, is that all the things that people would like to be discussing, the things the Prime Minister talked about on the steps of Downing Street, the burning injustices, just get no airtime at all. And then of course we all react differently. I would say that means you've got to get an agreement in place, get the thing over the line for 29th of March, and then we can talk about, we'll carry on talking about Brexit, but we'll also be talking about lots of other issues too.
I think that Theresa May should have done more to listen to people like Anna Soubry, Heidi and Sarah Wollaston. They say that they weren't called in for chats. On the other hand, that those pro-Brexit MPs are always the ones who are the first through the door.
Well, I happen to know that there were conversations with MPs on all sides. I think it's very difficult. And I think what happens is a bit of how MPs are handled. And once you begin to feel slightly disassociated from your own party, then it becomes a bit of a sort of self-perpetuating cycle. And people do stop talking and stop perhaps inviting people in. And then you stop reaching out and saying, I want to have those conversations. And that's when you can end up where you are. And that's a failing on all our parts. That's a failing on the part of leadership, on the whips, on fellow members of Parliament, not to say to people, actually, let's continue to talk and to engage.
When it comes to Brexit, of course, you are working with others to try and get an alternative. There's been lots of speculation about where that stands now, those alternative arrangements, and the suggestion that this is now going to be about the future relationship talks, not about now, really, not about the withdrawal agreement as it stands.
Well, my understanding is that the EU and UK have had really constructive talks about what could be alternative arrangements. So there's an acceptance that alternative arrangements can work, but there's no doubt that agreeing them, putting in place everything for the 29th of March is very challenging. So actually those talks will continue. There'll be a proper resourcing of officials on both sides of the channel to make those arrangements become a reality. And they could very well obviously sort of supersede, if you like, parts of the backstop, the protocol, but it's going to take time for that to happen. So the question, I think, now is that ministers are obviously continuing to see what changes otherwise could be agreed or additional things put in place to reassure those of my colleagues who are still very unhappy about the backstop.
Do you think that they would still have to vote through the withdrawal agreement?
Well, look, at the end of the day, I think pretty well everybody in this place, bar one or two people, wants there to be a deal. I think the EU want there to be a deal as well. And the best way to avoid a no deal is to have an agreement put in place. Businesses want that certainty. I think it's right that we give the country a clear direction of where we're headed. And that's why I think everybody now is working very hard on the Conservative benches, backbenchers and ministers to see if we can get a deal in place that gets support from the majority of MPs in this House.
You talked there about life beyond Brexit. It is hard to imagine at the moment, but if this grouping of MPs does become a party, if they try and occupy the so-called centre ground, are you concerned that that will be a problem for the Conservative Party and for the kind of Conservative Party that you want?
Look, I think it'll be a challenge for all of the main established parties. There are others, Liberal Democrats, who already would consider themselves to be more in the centre ground. It'd be a challenge for them too. But I don't think any political party should be frightened of other people setting up and pointing out issues that need to be tackled in modern Britain. The question is how the Conservative Party, my party, will respond. I think we've got lots of things we can talk about that would illustrate that we do very much get the concerns and want to address the issues that people have. But we've got to make sure we create space so we get this Brexit issue resolved as much as we possibly can to create the space to make sure we take those issues on.
What would your message be to any other of your colleagues who are considering leaving the Conservative Party?
Well, I would ask them to think again, think very, very hard. I think that any party, the Conservative Party, is best when we are a broad church with a big spectrum of opinion. That's how we reach out to people across the country. We need everybody, and I hope that people will have learnt some lessons from losing three very talented colleagues today.
Nicky Morgan, thank you very much indeed. And that is the message that's coming out from other ministers actually as well on the Conservative side, saying that the leadership has to look very hard about why those three MPs felt that they no longer could stay in the Conservative Party.
Vicky Young at Westminster, thank you very much. Busy afternoon for Vicky and all of her colleagues there in the BBC's political unit. Let's pause for a moment and remind ourselves, because often with these stories the news kind of moves so fast that we're kind of chasing and having to remind people where we got to this stage, we've been hearing reaction from Nicky Morgan to the news of those 3 defections. Let's hear from these MPs who've left themselves, who referred to themselves at one point to their news conference this lunchtime as the 3 amigos.
As my friend, and he is my friend, Chuka Ramuna said on Monday, you don't join a political party to fight it, and you don't stay in it and skirmish in the margins when the truth is the battle is over and the other side has won. The right wing, the hardline anti-EU awkward squad that have destroyed every leader for the last 40 years are now running the Conservative Party from top to toe. They are the Conservative Party. Dear friends, and they are dear friends, now former colleagues, who share those one nation values and principles, will of course today deny it. But I believe in their heads and in their hearts, they know it's over. And the reason they know it's over is because we lost the referendum, and Brexit now defines and shapes the Conservative Party.
I believed I was part of a party who worked collaboratively, welcomed knowledge, and had the empathy to feel. But I have slowly but surely realised that I am not. I can no longer represent a government and a party who can't open their eyes to the suffering endured by the most vulnerable in society. Suffering which we have deepened whilst having the power to fix. The Conservatives were always recognised as the party of economic competence. But when we allowed a cabinet minister to say F business, and we have a Prime Minister bullied into submission by the ERG, and is now dragging the country and Parliament, kicking and screaming to the edge of a no-deal abyss, I'm done. I want to be part of something better. A party that people vote for because they want to, not because they feel they have to.
This is about more than Brexit. I joined the party after spending 24 years as a frontline doctor in the NHS, wanting to make a difference, joining a tolerant, moderate, open-hearted Conservative Party, which I think has now disappeared. I'm afraid the Prime Minister simply hasn't delivered on the pledge she made on the steps of Downing Street to tackle the burning injustices in our society. And I think that what we now see is that the party that was once the most trusted on the economy and on business is now marching us towards the cliff edge of a no-deal Brexit. I've been saying for weeks that if it became main party policy to deliver no deal, then I would have to leave. But I'm afraid there comes a point when running down the clock is in effect the same thing. And none of us are prepared to wait until our toes are at the cliff edge before we take a stand.
Sarah Wollaston there, the now independent MP for Totnes in Devon. Now, she joined the Conservative Party and became active in Conservative politics, becoming selected under the process of open selections, which were introduced by David Cameron when he was Conservative leader. And Mr Cameron has tweeted his reaction to the news. He says, I'm sad that 3 talented Tory MPs have left the Conservative Party. I backed the open primaries that saw 2 of them, Sarah Wollaston and Heidi Allen, elected and supported them all. I respect their decision but disagree with them. We need strong voices at every level of the party calling for the modern, compassionate conservatism that saw the Conservative Party returned to office. Our party has long been able to contain different views on Europe. Everyone must ensure that that can continue to be the case. A warning there from the last Conservative leader. I think you can read between the lines of that particular tweet that the Conservative Party should be careful about welcoming the departure of these people, even if they disagree with them on the question of Europe. Of course, that relationship with Europe has been a running sore for the Tories and Labour, but perhaps more prominently for the Conservatives over the last 40 years. Let's talk now about something other, business with Vishala Sripathma. And in a moment, she's going to be telling us what's in the business news. Welcome. Good to have you back with us. First, though, let's take a look at the headlines here on Afternoon Live. More defections over Brexit. As I've been saying, 3 Conservative MPs have left their party. Another Labour MP has also left hers. Joan Ryan becomes the 8th to quit Labour and join the new independent group in Parliament. Family of the UK teenager who left to join IS in Syria say they'll challenge a government decision to revoke her British citizenship.
Hello, here are your business headlines on Afternoon Live. The proposed tie-up between Sainsbury's and Asda could push up prices and cut choice for customers. That's according to the Competition and Markets Authority, who are reviewing the deal. The Sainsbury's boss say the findings are outrageous. Lloyds Banking Group set aside £750 million last year for further claims relating to payment protection insurance. Banks are having to repay customers who did not want, need or understand the loan insurance. The addition takes the bank's total provision pot to £19.4 billion. At the same time, it says profits rose 24%. And Swiss banking giant UBS has been fined £3.2 billion in a French tax fraud case. A court in Paris found that the bank had illegally helped French clients hide billions of euros from French tax authorities. UBS has said it would appeal against the verdict.
Now, Vishala, let's
Yes.
talk about that Sainsbury's Asda merger. I mean, at one point their shares down 12%, Sainsbury's,
That's
on the
right.
bad news. Is
I
it
know.
all off?
Well, it's actually, it was 15% before I came down here, so it's even dropped even further. So the Competition and Markets Authority, they're the regulator, and they've basically said that they have a problem with this deal because they feel that it might raise prices for consumers and also make the shopping experience for them not as good. Now, this is completely in contradiction of what Sainsbury's was saying when this deal was first announced. Sainsbury's even went as far as saying that actually prices would reduce for consumers.
So they're saying that's just not going to happen in their judgment.
That's what their concern is. And just to give you a bit of context, Asda and Sainsbury's merging would mean that a huge supermarket would be created. Something like on the lines of £1 in every £3 spent would be spent on Asda's or Sainsbury's supermarket.
So other supermarkets, imagine, like Tesco and stuff, would be pretty worried by that.
Yes, exactly. So we spoke to Stuart McIntosh a bit earlier on, the chair of the CMA. This is what he had to say.
Our concerns are local in as much as there may be particular areas where the groceries are located close together and they compete very strongly with each other. But our concerns are also national. Because the extent of our concerns are such that we are concerned that prices charged by the companies across all of their stores might rise, including those which are not affected directly from competition by the other party.
Stuart McIntosh from the CMA there. Now, they have proposed two solutions to their concerns. The first is to block the deal completely. The second is to sell assets, for Sainsbury's to sell some assets. Now, this is quite a complicated process. Not everyone's entirely optimistic this can happen before the final ruling at the 30th of April. Earlier, we heard from Suzanne Rabb, a senior barrister at Searle Court.
It is not unknown for things to be turned around at provisional findings, but the timing is very tight now. So it is an uphill task, but one never wants to say never. It will really be down to what types of remedies the merging parties can put on the table and whether that will be enough to turn things around. And again, the CMA is due to report on